Hey everyone. As you're probably all aware, there was some pretty big news in the Linux community this week. As you've probably seen, PewDiePie released a video of him, how he switched to Linux. If you don't know, PewDiePie is like the really famous, was once the most subscribed channel on YouTube, like gaming YouTuber and whatnot, right? And PewDiePie switching to Linux is a really positive move, I think, in my opinion, for the Linux community. Now, I watched this video because I was, obviously highly interested in, it's a Linux topic and it's a YouTuber that I used to watch a lot and enjoy. So I watched this video and it was actually really neat seeing him go through like the thought process and why he switched, and he really did a good job like explaining the reasons why he wanted to switch. I think like for me, I kind of related because I'm like, oh, like that's, I was kind of feeling the same way as him too. Because throughout his video he was talking about how like essentially Windows is really slow, and he was getting sick of like proprietary software with like Adobe, and he bought this one laptop, but it ran like really bad, even though it was like expensive. And I think like we all, anyone who's like a Linux user now, can relate to that because that's kind of one of the main reasons why we switch over. Because if you put like for example Linux Mint on a older laptop that used to run like Windows 10 or even maybe like 11, right? You switch it to Linux Mint and you just realize how snappy fast it boots and just how it's more responsive in general. So it was really great to see like his thought process and how he went through everything. And he didn't just install like Mint and leave it. I mean, he did for one of his distros, but he really customized it. And I even learned something by watching his video, which is really neat as well. But he also did install Arch, which is like kind of like another level of respect. Now maybe he used the Arch install script, or I think he did it like the full way, which is good. But either way, it's still a pretty big accomplishment. Someone that like you wouldn't think would do that actually does it. Because I know he released a video not too long ago where he built his own PC, and it was kind of entertaining to watch that. But it just shows like I know a lot of people out there, they're very afraid to make the change, and they're worried about this, and that. But if you kind of take it like an approach like PewDiePie did, or even how I've explained in the past, it can be done. It's just you have to kind of like it's like problem solving, and you have to think about at one point you learned how to use Windows. Right, growing up, like when I was a kid, I basically learned Windows off Windows, I think Windows ME and Windows XP. That's how I got to learn Windows. And when you start to learn Linux, it's kind of like that process all over again. But if you kind of take it like a phased, like method approach, and identify like what you need to do, and practice it like on a VM, or even look up videos, that's great. I believe like it can be done if you really want it and want to do it, and I think PewDiePie showed that, and I think him showing that with such a large audience is a very good thing because it shows even someone like him who he has a family, his job like being YouTube, like huge channel, he took the time and did it, and he's very happy. I know the one thing in his video that kind of stuck to me is he was really sick of paying Adobe for their Photoshop and I think editing licenses, and he had a cancellation fee for that service. So, and he was really happy just to switch to something that's free and open source, and not have to worry about the proprietary software. But yeah, really the biggest thing for me is that this is going to reach a lot of people. He was once the most subscribed channel on YouTube with like T-Series. I think he's still pretty far up there. I don't know if he's the most subscribed anymore, but this will reach a lot of mass audiences. I know probably a lot of people are going to start trying Mint and Ubuntu and all those other distributions. So if you're here based on that video, welcome, and I will help you out. I have lots of videos already, not lots, but a decent amount of how to do things and advice. But it'll be really good for the Linux community. Get a new influx of I guess not customers, but users, you could say. But one thing that really strikes me is that the Windows 10 end of life is coming soon too. So I feel like this PewDiePie and then that coming is going to have a huge wave of Linux users coming, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, this is the year of the desktop, this Linux desktop, this is it. But we'll see. I mean, it is getting very popular. I know when I look on Distro Watch, there's a lot of very popular distributions, and Linux Mint is really easy to use. Like I was doing some tests the other day, and I'm like, wow, this is even easier than when I installed it a couple years ago. It just keeps getting better and better. But just really wanted to come on here and talk about like the big news this week. I know everybody talks about it, but just want to give my 2 cents, and honestly just say that made me it was really happy and really felt good seeing that, and just kind of shows like if you put your mind to something and you really want to do it, you can. And I hope more people can see the Linux community as more welcoming. I know sometimes there's a bad rap like Linux, it's a bunch of nerds that don't bunch of greasy Discord mods that don't know what they're doing. But really, if you want to get into it, and people are willing to help, you just have to try. Like if you just install something and you have like a kernel panic and you don't try to like look up like part of the code that gets outputted, yeah, people might get upset. But if you try and it's like, hey, like help me out, I'm new, people are probably more than willing to help you. At least I would be able to, just give a quick pointer, maybe even have to look up things myself. But yeah, that's really it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave some comments below what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.